disappointed in because the organs like totally fall apart. So
Oh, that one. Yeah. I was like, no, there's no way you got an extra vulva puppet because they're too hard.
those are pricey and but I
And
should get another one
special
anyway.
and exclusive.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay, so welcome everybody to Kegels and Mocktails. I'm Shirley. This is my friend Kim. I don't know which way to point. AKA the Vagina Coach. And we've been having lots of fun so far this year. We've been doing this once a month. This is our third edition of Kegels and Mocktails. I hope there's more. And it's one of the few events where you actually get to set the agenda with your questions related to vulva, vaginal, and pelvic health. And so the chat is open. Feel free to pop questions in there anytime. We're probably going to spend a couple of minutes off the top just catching up and talking about what's new at Menopause Chicks and at the Vagina Coach. And then the rest of the hour is dedicated to your questions. Kegels and Cocktails is actually Kim's. That's her name. She came up with it, but we've changed it to Mocktails because we're such partiers. So I have my soda water.
I've got my regular flat water.
My kids gave me a soda stream for Christmas, and in honor of this special occasion, I've greened it up a little bit. So cheers. Cheers.
Cheers to you, my friend, and everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so cold where Bev is. Sorry to hear that. And Joanne's drinking water. It's probably a good thing. We'll talk about hydration. Anyway, Kim, update me. Tell me about your podcast. You're the second post on every time I open up my social media. I've seen you everywhere this month. So tell us what's new.
What is new? Well, the podcast I launched not too long ago. Yesterday, actually, the 10th episode launched, and it's all about pelvic health and foot health. And I met with Dr. Emily Splickle, who is, she calls herself the functional foot doc. She's a podiatrist. She's awesome. I loved our conversation. And so far people are really enjoying the podcast. I love doing it. I love conversations with amazing, interesting people. And it really kind of highlights what you and I know, which is we need a village for our health, and we need a village for our pelvic health, for menopause, transition, vaginal health. Like we need more than just a family doctor. They're one of the people, but there's lots of other people that can help us as well too. So that's happening with that. I just yesterday, actually, so this isn't live on any website yet, but it will be. I was invited to speak at a retreat in Bali in September. And it is two women who have come together to create retreats specific to menopause. So the whole theme really is menopause focused. Obviously, mine will interweave pelvic health in there as well. But I'm super excited about that. And I used to live, I don't know if you know this, but I used to live in Indonesia when I was in high school.
Yeah. Well, I only found that out because of your app winning that trip. So many.
So I get to go to Bali twice in a year.
I was like, that doesn't overlap with your trip this spring. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm going to Bali the first 2 weeks of May for this other thing. And now yesterday I was invited and I'm just like, can somebody please pinch me? I feel incredibly lucky. So that's really exciting. I'm excited about that. And of course, I'll be sharing details about where to register and sign up for that once the page is live. And I've made a couple of changes to my app, and I used to run a challenge every single month, as you know, and we would talk about that a lot. And I still do have the challenge, but what I've recognized is people are okay with spending $27 and they'll go through the challenge and they will get some resolution of their symptoms, sometimes a complete elimination of them, which is great. And then they don't carry on. And the people that are the most successful are the ones who move past the challenge and start to progress to all the other workouts and information that I have. And so I really want to get as many people into a mindset of this is a lifestyle, and commit to this for a year. I've made it very accessible financially. The challenge is included. You could join the challenge every single month if you wanted to, but I want people to do the challenge and progress and stay consistent, because that's really where the magic happens. So that's kind of a bit of a shift on my side too.
Yes. Okay. That's like one of the shifts I had after meeting and learning from you is there's certain things, everybody listening, there's certain things I cannot do in my life without thinking about Kim. One of them is like pushing a grocery cart around the grocery store, right? Another is I live at the top of a hill. So if ever I'm walking up the hill, I turn around and I walk backwards, because I remember once we were walking and you're like, that's good for your pelvic floor. And I was like, okay. And so like, there's all these things that it just, once you hear the message, and it does take longer than 27 days, right? Or what, 30 days. It takes a bit longer for that to become ingrained and become part of your, when you're taking groceries out of the trunk of your car, all those things.
Totally. Yeah. It's a lot can happen. A lot of change can happen really even in a couple of weeks for a lot of people. It's about creating new habits and recognizing that this is a lifestyle. It's not just a quick fix and you're boom, taking care of my pelvic floor. I want to set people up for success. So I'm trying to structure things a little bit differently. The app name, sorry, somebody was asking me.
Let's dial it back 30 seconds because someone in the chat is asking about the app. So just give us your spiel.
So the vaginacoach.com, I'm putting a link in here right now to where you can sign up for the membership. There is an option if you just want to pay monthly, you can certainly do that. But I do recommend that you take advantage of the year because it's so cheap, and it is a year and it's one payment. And then you just have access to absolutely everything for the whole year, including the challenges. And it's called the Buff Muff app. Yeah.
And I mean, I love the fact that it's now being positioned more as an annual program, because in reality, there's probably people that are on the call right now. Like if you're experiencing incontinence already, let's say it's spring. I always think about, peeing when I sneeze, if I have allergies in the springtime or whatever. Sure, you'll learn to do the exercises during the challenge, but you can't just do a couple of bicep curls and then go, oh, my arms are good, right? Like it has to be ongoing.
Yeah. We don't brush our teeth once. Right. Or for 28 days and then we're good. It's a part of it. And unfortunately, we've never been told that. We've never been offered the information that this is something that is a part of the body that really needs extra special attention, and it needs it for our whole life. So I always say, as you know, we need to treat our pelvic health like we do our oral health, and see a pelvic floor physical therapist once a year and brush our teeth and floss.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So some of you have been to Kegels and Mocktails before. I think in January, a lot of the questions did focus on prolapse. In February, we talked a lot about incontinence. At both sessions, we've talked about vaginal dryness and the moisturizer. And before we get too far into this, I promised everyone yesterday that I had a gift card for you for showing up today. So I want to share that information so that you don't have to fast forward to the end to find that out. I think I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. Let me see how I can get this into full screen. So this is officially the Health Canada approved vulva and vaginal moisturizer. It started out as a request from the Menopause Chicks community in 2016. In 2019, it was launched as a compounded hyaluronic acid with a little bit of vitamin E moisturizer. So many of our members, so many pelvic health professionals, Kim included, have tried it and have shared it with their communities and their clients. So it did grow and grow and grow, and then it could no longer really feasibly be a compounded product anymore. So that formula was taken to Health Canada in 2022. It is Health Canada approved. It has its own natural health number, and it has an extended shelf life. And you can order this at moisturizervagina.com. So one of the biggest questions that I've been getting over the last 6 months is, why has there been 2 moisturizers on that site? And the truth is, it was, an inventory challenge at first. Post-pandemic, we were waiting for pumps to come in. We were waiting for, just for the transition to happen. I am happy to say that we're there today. And to celebrate that, I want to share with all of you a gift card. So this is the first time that we have extended a gift card for $15. So you can get $15 off any of the products at moisturizeyourvagina.com by using this code MCHICKS15. And I'll include that when I send you the replay in 24 hours. Watch your email. You'll get a copy of all the details as well. But just so that you know, it's $15 off any purchase over 100. All the prices are in Canadian dollars. You save even more if you order the larger sizes. So the 60 gram or the 90 gram. Shipping is free in Canada. It's free to the US when you spend 150. It's free internationally. And yes, we are sending a lot of orders to Australia.
That's awesome.
Spend over $300. It just can't be combined with any other offers on that site. And there's certain products that can't be discounted, but for the most part, it's $15 off for you today. So that's my little,
is amazing.
That's my little home shopping network presentation.
Yeah. It's like the name of it is so perfect because it is amazing. It will help you feel amazing. And it is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I love you and I love everything that you do and all that. We collaborate on things. It really, truly, I use it every day.
Me too.
I use it from clitoris to anus, inside, outside. I love it. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for saying that too, because I think, even we just learn as we grow and as we know more. We originally called it a vaginal moisturizer, but it is in fact a vulva, which is the external and internal vaginal moisturizer. And skin is skin, and we need to moisturize all of that skin, but it's specifically formulated for the vulva and the vagina. And it's made into a gel so that it will stay where you put it as well. So it's really easy to apply to your finger and insert it. You don't have to lay down. You don't have to worry about it running out afterwards. Yeah, so really, really proud of it. Really proud that it is kind of a story that began with menopause chicks asking for it. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
All right. Awesome.
I'm going to go back to the chat and see if we have any questions.
I feel like so there's one there about prolapse.
Diana has a question, has a friend. That's great that you're asking questions for your friend. And Joanne has a question about confusing information out there, varying opinions and best options. If you have, congratulations on Bali, Kim. Joanne, if you have something specific that you want us to talk about confusing information, we're happy to unpack that.
I'll go with Diana's here, where she's has a friend who had prolapse operation, OP, so surgery, and then started having bladder problems. And so by bladder problems, I don't want to assume, but I'm thinking maybe things like urgency, frequency, and leaking. So you can clarify, Diana, if I have that incorrect, but this is actually really super common. So a prolapse is where, so here's our vagina. Here's our vagina, the tube. Okay. So the tube of the vagina, pretend this is the tube of the vagina. And we'll have our uterus up here. We'll have our bladder right here. And we have our rectum right here. So this is what it looks like when they're all nestled nicely together inside of our pelvis. This is the bladder. This is the vagina, the uterus is on top here, and here's the rectum, okay? So here's now the tube, the vagina, the tube that attaches to the cervix and the uterus. And in a prolapse, what happens is the uterus can start to descend into, from the top down into the vagina. In a bladder prolapse, it can bulge into the anterior or the front wall, creating a bit of a pocket. And then the rectum, can bulge in the back wall and create a pocket in the posterior wall. Those are the most common types of pelvic organ prolapse. And statistically, 50% of women have some degree of prolapse. It's super, super, super common, more common than incontinence. Many people are, when they find out they have it, or maybe they've even struggled for years and not sought help, but they finally go get some help and they're referred to surgery to a urogynecologist typically, and they have surgery. And it's great because it can temporarily, well, for some people, it totally eliminates symptoms, which is great. However, it can also uncover other things. So sometimes when we have, especially a bladder prolapse, or if we had a uterine prolapse, the bulge of another prolapse can sometimes actually apply pressure on the urethra, which can mask incontinence. And so when that bulge is removed, then the incontinence is uncovered. So that's super, super common. And people get frustrated because they have one problem addressed and now they have another one. But really, at the end of the day, before we go to surgery, before we go on pharmaceuticals because we think we have an overactive bladder, we need to look at what's the cause. How did this start in the first place? Do I have chronic constipation? Was it from childbirth? Was it, or is it because of hormonal changes? Is it my diet that I'm drinking things that are irritating my bladder? Is it habitual, like certain habits or behaviors that I have? So we need to uncover all of that first. And then sometimes surgery can be a really great option, but we would have done a lot of the investigative work and the work such as pelvic floor exercise first that puts us in a better state. We go through the surgery, we come out on the other end, and then even more important, that we take care of the diet and the lifestyle and the consistent exercise afterwards, because we now have scar tissue. So for your friend, I would recommend, number one, they see a pelvic floor physical therapist. That can help them address some of the scar tissue that would have resulted from that surgery. Maybe even they had scar tissue before if they happen to have had a cesarean birth or a vaginal birth. I would potentially recommend them to my app or something else to have them do consistent pelvic floor exercise. I would also recommend hypopressives. This is a specific exercise technique. I also have it in my app. And also then look at how to retrain that, the bladder, if it's incontinence or urgency or frequency that person's having. And then of course, depending on the stage of life that that person is in, definitely moisturize your vagina, possibly vaginal estrogen as well.
And I think Diana just added, she did not say what was operated on, but is now having to pee every 15 minutes with lots of pressure.
Okay. Yeah. So 1000% go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. And it's often, it can be scar tissue related. It could be like scar tissue, we need it. So when we have an incision or an injury, there is adhesions that are created. That's a natural, normal healing that we need. But those adhesions can interfere with blood flow, circulation, nerve, sometimes messaging, muscle function. And so freeing up that tension from those adhesions can alleviate some of that. Sometimes, maybe it's retraining the muscles, maybe it's diet and lifestyle related, but definitely have them seek some guidance on that.
Amazing. Thank you. Sandy says, I signed up for the app 3 weeks ago, loving it, feeling relief from my symptoms.
Awesome.
Amazing. Yay. Lois says she's excited to find products in Canada. She's been buying from the US, so that's really cool. Yes, it is proudly a Canadian product. Is the Feel Amazing product available at any USA stores or on Amazon? No, but it is at moisturizeyourvagina.com, and we do ship to the US and internationally. Is burning underneath the vagina low estrogen and or PFD? What's PFD?
Pelvic floor dysfunction.
Oh, okay. So I think we probably should back up a little bit. I know I jumped in because I'm excited about the moisturizer, but what happens at menopause? So menopause is the 12-month anniversary of our final period. After we've gone 12 consecutive months period free, we have in fact reached menopause. And then every day after that is postmenopause. And how that looks or how it's defined is, generally speaking, a significant decline in estrogen. That's the defining experience of postmenopause. Alongside of that, hyaluronic acid, the ingredient that's in the moisturizer, is actually a naturally occurring molecule. So it's something our body makes on its own, but it starts to decline in our 30s and in our 40s, and then also a rapid decline postmenopause. So how does that affect our skin? Well, all of our skin, because of that decline in hyaluronic acid and decline in estrogen, gets drier as we get older. I think we kind of expect that, but not all of us would make the connection to our vulva and vaginal health. Not all of us will make the connection to the fact that that may also impact how lubricated our eyes are, or our mouth, or our joints too. So those missing ingredients are really key to our overall health. Now, in postmenopause, the vagina can atrophy. Atrophy means when a muscle, even like our bicep, gets smaller or shrinks in size. And dryness is a symptom of vaginal atrophy. So that's your mini lesson in postmenopause and what can happen. Burning, Kim, can be the result of many things, I'm assuming, right? So I would make sure that you check, have an assessment with a pelvic floor physio, check with your family doctor if that's not possible, and just make sure that you understand what the root cause is of burning, because burning can mean something different than dryness that we're generally speaking about as a result of estrogen decline. So speak to and I would ask how old you are, the date of your last period. That would give me a lot of information, perhaps about what is impacting your vulva and vaginal health as a result. And yeah, what else would you add, Kim?
Yeah, everything that you said, awesome. And so the pH of our vagina changes as well with that decline in estrogen, which can lead to burning from a UTI perspective, or sometimes people feel like they have UTIs. It can increase urgency, or it could be burning after things that are inserted. So if we're having insertive or penetrative sex, and it can also be the muscles. So underneath, so again, here's our organs that sit inside the pelvis. So how I had them nestled was sideways here. And this is the sling of muscles underneath. And here's the vulva. And so this group of muscles that surround and envelop, like there's 3 different layers of them, can be the source of burning as well. So if we have tension in those muscles, and that tension can be from if we're afraid of leaking, if we've had trauma, if we sit and stand in tucked positions, if if we're afraid of leaking or prolapse and we're kind of on guard,
Right.
Those muscles become overactive, and we can start to get burning as a result of that. There are also conditions like vestibulodynia, vulvodynia. So the vestibule is basically the entrance to the vagina, and sometimes there can be burning sensations with touch. Something called provoked vestibulodynia is when you actually touch it and it creates pain. There can be pain and burning with the thought of something touching when there's actually nothing touching at all. So that would be more characteristic of vaginismus. So there's lots of different contributors to that sensation, which makes it a little bit challenging, but not something that's insurmountable. And I would recommend your first stop be a pelvic floor physical therapist. They can help decipher whether it's something muscular or tissue or medical, and then refer on if it is something that requires medical attention.
Excellent advice. Thank you. Okay. I think this one from iPhone Julie is probably for you. I had prolapse and bladder sling surgery last fall, and I've had continued leaking of urine since surgery. What are your thoughts on level stimulators for pelvic floor strengthening?
So level sometimes is an auto correct for Kegel. So I'm thinking she's probably meaning Kegel stimulators, or sort of like the pelvic muscle stimulators. So
yeah, she got it. Yeah, she corrected it. Yep.
E-stim, electrical stimulation is something that could potentially be beneficial, but if you have not been, I don't know if you have, but if you have not been, go see a pelvic floor physical therapist first. Many people will look for devices or gadgets or things that are supposed to help with the problem. And they absolutely can for some people, but we need to understand root causes. And in my opinion, pelvic floor physical therapists are the best at helping us determine root causes. So is the leaking because the muscles are not responding at the right time? Is it because they're not responding with the right amount of force? Are they too tight? Is it scar tissue that's interfering with the capacity of the muscles to react at the right time with the right amount of force? So there's again, a lot that I would want to inquire there. I would not go directly to a pelvic floor stimulator or a Kegel device. I would put your money to a pelvic floor physical therapist first. And I would also say hypopressives and pelvic floor exercise to get some blood flow and circulation. And when you say prolapse surgery and then you had bladder sling, I'm going to either it's a rectocele or a uterine prolapse. And I want to know did they take your uterus out, or did they resuspend the uterus, or was it your rectum? So those are follow-up questions that I would have.
Do we learn how to do a hypopressive in the app?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I got a direct message from someone asking, can you use the moisturizer along with estrogen? And the answer is yes. You might be taking estrogen and progesterone therapy systemically. You can also use the moisturizer with localized estrogen therapy. Many of my members do both because, as I mentioned, we're missing both of those ingredients in postmenopause. I always tell members, and there's really not there's no data on this, but I always say apply them separately. The reason I want to do that is because both therapies are so important, and I want your skin to absorb optimally. So for example, you might moisturize every morning, shower, brush your teeth, moisturize your vagina. And then at night, you would follow the prescriber's instructions for the localized estrogen therapy, which is probably 2 to 3 times a week. So yes, lots of people see success with both. And just a reminder, I sometimes forget to include this in my responses. I have found, after working on this initiative for the last number of years, that not all physicians or pharmacists are telling women when they might expect results from localized estrogen therapy. And it can take 3 to 4 months, which makes sense when you look at it from a hindsight perspective. Like if you reached menopause 16 years ago and haven't had that important estrogen, then it's going to, of course, take some time for localized estrogen therapy to work. It's probably going to take time, a little bit more time, for the hyaluronic acid moisturizer to work as well. But using those two together is going to give you the best chance. And then stay in touch with your prescriber too. Like, just make sure you keep communicating. If you're not achieving the desired results, communicate with me, communicate with your prescriber, because you deserve to feel amazing.
Hallelujah.
I lost my spot. Oh, here we go.
Weird.
Janet?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I have a prolapse for uterine and bladder. I have urge incontinence and frequency. I have a gynae appointment on Monday, April 3rd for possible pessaries, followed by pelvic floor physiotherapist appointment. Would Kim's program be beneficial in addition to or instead of continued physio? So great gynecologist is really important to have on our team. Pelvic floor physical therapist, absolutely super important to have on the team. Do both. A pessary is something, it's if you can think of an orthotic that we put in our shoes that help support our feet and our arches. A pessary is essentially an orthotic for the pelvic floor. So it's inserted into the vagina. There's different shapes, there's different sizes. And when they are inserted and they essentially open up. They can provide support to the walls of the vagina where there may be bulges from organs or from the top down if the uterus is displacing. So urge incontinence and frequency can sometimes be because of prolapse and because there's additional pressure being applied to the bladder. So that's one thing. It could be, again, that the muscles may have overactivity because they're trying to support these displaced organs, and overactivity can often irritate the bladder as well. And the other piece with urgency and frequency is diet and behaviors. So there's things that we do thinking we are helping with our problems. So if we have incontinence, or if we've had urgency in the past and we're afraid we won't make it to the bathroom in time, we are often going to the bathroom frequently to stay empty, thinking that that will prevent us from having these urges. And what happens is it trains the bladder to signal more often. And then if we have diet challenges such as bladder irritants that we're consuming, or if we're not drinking water because we are afraid we're going to have urges or we're afraid of leaking, we now have become dehydrated. We have concentrated urine, potentially have bladder irritants that are contributing to the bladder signaling more often. So we kind of get into this chicken and the egg scenario, and we need to address the muscle function. We need to address our behaviors and our lifestyle and potentially any bladder irritants, and drink more water. And that seems super scary to people who have been leaking or who have urgency. The thought of drinking more water is they think they're going to be sent to the bathroom right away or all day. But being more hydrated and therefore the urine not being as concentrated will actually help calm the bladder, and it won't be signaling you to get it out as often. And sorry, just as a follow-up, would my program be beneficial? Yes. Pelvic floor physical therapy is the biggest benefit, in my opinion, is the internal evaluation and treatment, looking at posture, breathing, that type of thing. I cover posture and breathing and activation of the muscles to support the work that you have had done with a pelvic floor physical therapist. And a lot of pelvic floor physical therapists refer people to my program for them kind of to do the home support and not always have to rely on going to the pelvic floor physical therapist. But I do recommend you go at least once a year.
Absolutely. I hope that was helpful, Janet. Kim, before we move on from that, what is a bladder irritant? What are some examples?
The most common are caffeine, alcohol. That's why we've got mocktails instead of cocktails.
But I know what you're going to say next, and I think it's in my glass.
Artificial sweeteners, carbonated water, chocolate, acidic foods, spicy foods, dairy for some people, anything that's contributing to inflammation, sugar, but caffeine, alcohol, chocolate, acidic foods are known bladder irritants. Not to everybody, but they're super common. And that means that if you drink a coffee in the morning, if you start tracking using a bladder diary, you may notice that every time you have your coffee, you have to go a lot more frequently. You have maybe stronger urges. You might have more leaking. And then if you're tracking how much water you're drinking, and then you realize you don't actually drink as much as you thought you did, you're probably a little bit dehydrated in there as well. So those are the most common, but there could be other foods that you are sensitive to as well.
Cool. Sex is supposed to be fun and enjoyable. It is no longer. It hurts. Will the moisturizer help? Well, my first response to that is we would need to find out what is the root cause of sex being painful? Is it Kim's going to say this. Go see a pelvic floor physiotherapist. Is it pelvic pain? Like if it's uncomfortable from dryness, the moisturizer is definitely going to help. The moisturizer is definitely going to help. If you are approaching menopause or recently reached menopause, in postmenopause, it is not a lubricant though. So it is not to be used adjacent to sexual activity. It's actually designed to be used away from sexual activity. So I'll just explain the differences between a moisturizer and a lubricant quickly. You wouldn't put on a face cream or a night cream and then immediately rub it all off, right? So you want to moisturize your vulva and your vagina and let that amazing hyaluronic acid do its job. And you want to use a pH-friendly lubricant every time you have sex, sometimes even with a partner. Right?
1,000%. And yes, pelvic floor physiotherapy, and I feel like I should just wear a shirt. Go see a pelvic floor physical therapist all the time. But so as Shirley said, that could be the reason why sex is painful. It could also be that there's scar tissue. It could be that the muscles are on guard and high alert, and they're not allowing potentially something to be inserted, or when they are, then it feels uncomfortable. And again, that's restricting blood flow and circulation if the muscles are tight. So it's treatable. And
yes.
And that's, I think, an important part, but we want to understand what is causing that pain first, and then we know how to address it.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Just to confirm, the new Feel Amazing Vulva and Vaginal Moisturizer is the same as the vaginal moisturizer compounded by Pure Pharmacy. Yes, and I think I forgot to say this off the top, but the compounded original version is coming down off of my site at the end of this month. So it's the same formula, the same results. What's different about Feel Amazing is that it's Health Canada approved, has its own NPN, which stands for natural product number, and it has an extended shelf life. So I think what we have right now it doesn't expire, but it has a best before date of June 2024, which I guarantee you will use it by then. And yeah, those are the only differences, and they're all additional benefits. Oh, the next comment, Kim, is from Diana again, just about Botox and her friend.
Yeah. So Botox is something that we think of it as something that we're applying into our face to help prevent wrinkles and relax things. But well, I shouldn't say but, and it can be used the same way, in a sense, in our pelvic floor and in our bladder to relax. So if we have overactivity, Botox can be used elsewhere to help those muscles relax. So again, it wouldn't be the very first thing that I would recommend that somebody pursue as an option, but it is an option. So let's look at, are there, lifestyle strategies? Is there scar tissue? Is it posture? Is it guarding that could potentially be contributing to the challenges? And if pursuing the treatments for those are not working, that there's another step up, which could be Botox, that could be beneficial and helpful. So I wouldn't go there first, but it is absolutely an option.
Okay, cool. I always learn something new whenever I talk to you. I think the next couple are for you.
So
Joanne,
yeah, she had said earlier, just kind of general, and then I think you had asked to potentially elaborate. So she's 10 weeks post complete hysterectomy and rectocele cystocele repairs, along with urethra sling. Amazing urogynecologist. Very happy with the results so far. Very excited to start pelvic floor physical therapy next month. That's awesome. So cystocele and a rectocele are names of types of prolapse. So cystocele is the same as a bladder prolapse. Rectocele is where the rectum bulges in the back wall of the vagina. And that is a type of organ prolapse as well. So you had a very extensive surgery. I'm so happy that you found somebody that was awesome. I'm so happy that you are feeling great. And I'm also happy that you're seeing a pelvic floor physio. So as I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, after surgery, many people think, and are sometimes even told by their healthcare providers, that you don't need pelvic floor exercise anymore because now I've fixed everything. I argue we need it more. Right. So please absolutely carry on with your pelvic floor physio, and then continue to see them at least once a month. And you're right, this information isn't shared generally, but that's changing. Events like this, we now are learning, and there's social media shares, and we can then leave this and tell others. So that's how the world is going to continue to change. And there's also a lot more people advocating for themselves when they see their medical providers, because doctors can't know everything.
Yeah.
Their training really is pharmaceuticals and surgery. That's what they're taught in allopathic medicine. And that's amazing that we have those resources available when we need them. But there's a whole host of other practitioners and different types of medicine that come at it from a bit more of a preventive mindset that I think would be better for our first line of defense. And then we have our allopathic medicine practitioners when we need those other options.
I agree. And I am seeing like some success stories of doctors who are recommending pelvic floor physio, because doctors don't become doctors to withhold information. It's like as soon as they learn and see that their patient is not just surviving, but thriving, then they start to recommend that, and it becomes the domino effect. We still have a long way to go, but you're right. Things like this and people like you that sign up for Kegels and Mocktails, and then you leave here and you go and tell a friend, you tell somebody younger, you tell someone older. That's how we get the word out.
Yeah. Awesome.
Valerie says, intercourse has become painful at the opening of my vagina. The pelvic floor physiotherapist believes it's from an episiotomy scar. I internally massage the area, but wonder if you have any additional suggestions.
Okay, awesome. So I'm glad you saw a therapist. That's awesome. So just anatomy wise, here's the anus, here's the vulva, here's the vagina, there's the urethra. This area here in between the vagina and the entrance of the vagina, between the anus and the entrance of the vagina is called the perineal body or the perineum. During a vaginal birth, it's very common to experience tearing in and around this area. And in episiotomy, this is something that used to be done pretty much to everybody. I know in my mom's day and age, it was done to everybody, where they make an incision either off to the side or straight down to create more space. And it is still done now, usually just in an emergency situation. And the thought was, well, if we can create more space, it would make it easier for mom and babe. And while that was well intended, it was creating a path where there could be more extensive tearing. And they were finding that people who had episiotomies were having a more difficult time with recovery, more pain afterwards. And they have to suture up. So there is residual scar tissue that is there that would need to be manipulated. So you've talked about doing some internal massage. You can do external and internal. Castor oil is, excuse me, very good for helping break up adhesions and scar tissue. That's something that you may want to investigate using while you're doing your massage. And you can do external directly on the scar, and then internal, you can use your fingers. You can use also a Thera wand or a pelvic wand. They are sort of S-shaped, almost like handles in a way. One end is usually a little more round and bulbous, and another end would be a little bit more, not pointy as in sharp, but just have a bit more of a less rounded end to it, so you can get a bit more targeted to specific tissues. I would start with the rounder end, and you can insert it. So if you imagine that this is the vagina, when you insert, you can start to apply gentle pressure around the opening, potentially apply pressure and hold it and breathe into that space, maybe even manipulating with the end of the Thera wand as well, and or your fingers, as I mentioned before. And using your breath is really important during that time to inhale. When you inhale, the pelvic floor is relaxing. And then if needed or required, using dilators. So dilators are essentially silicone devices that gradually increase in size. So once you start to, once you're at a place where you can accommodate a certain size, we would use the next for you to learn how to relax and gain the confidence that something that size can be inserted, and then you gradually progress up from there. So those are a couple of additional tips. I would also recommend potentially the V Sculpt, or it's called the V Fit if you're in the United States. V Sculpt, which is
right now. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I don't have mine with me because I'm not in my office, but this is a red light device. So it's used internally, and it uses red light, infrared heat, and vibration. And the vibration can help elicit relaxation. The heat can as well. And the red light can have an influence to tissue and inflammation, which is often corresponding with scar tissue as well. So that's, and Janet just said she loves her V-Sculpt. I've been using it for years. I love it. It's an amazing, amazing device. So that's another thing that I would recommend.
Those are great tips. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have to read the next one. Joanne says, grateful for finding Kim. The same month I started the journey. So much great info. I've picked back up with the pelvic surgery course and recovery. Need to join the Buff Muff and be proactive with a future of regular work to keep everything good. Have started vaginal estrogen, and I also take bias, progesterone, and testosterone, 59, and feel amazing. Oh, she said feel great.
That's awesome.
That's a great story. Thank you, Joanne, for sharing. Love it.
And
love
for putting in the work.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, that's
for
awesome.
sure. And Diana says, for the last 15 years, I have used S-string and I use Feel Amazing too. I am 70 and I have had pain for the last 10 years. I assume that you're pain-free now, just reading that. Or did you have a question, Diana? Let us know. Valerie says, as a breast cancer survivor, I'm taking estrogen blockers. Are there any estrogen substitutes that could ease hot flashes and additional unpleasant symptoms? Yeah, so that's more of a hormone therapy question, but the good news is, Valerie, there are so many new developments that are happening in this area of women's health, and I hope you have a great hormone expert on your team. You can message me at Menopause Chicks on Facebook, and we can talk through that more. And I can give you the names of more non-hormonal treatments for hot flashes, and stay in touch with, follow the North American Menopause Society, because there's lots more developments that continue to happening.
I would also recommend reading the book Estrogen Matters. I was at an event recently in LA called the New Pause Symposium, and Dr. Avram Blooming and Carol Tavris, the authors of that book, were both there presenting.
They're amazing.
And they're awesome. Even if you can Google Dr. Avram Blooming, you'll hear him on lots of podcasts. I just really adore them, and their book is awesome.
Their book is awesome.
Yeah. So I would recommend also going there, because he is a medical doctor and an oncologist. His wife and daughter both had breast cancer, and he gives the research and his treatment kind of, I wouldn't say protocols, but recommendations for people who are in your shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's real. And we'll find out, Valerie, who you have on your team too, because it's important to have a hormone therapy expert who's, that's been educated recently and can work with your own unique situation, because everything, when we talk about hormone therapy, is individualized. So it has to be what's right for you and your health.
Yeah.
Nicola wants to know, when is the next Buff Muff?
Buff Muff, the next Buff Muff challenge, they start the 1st of every month. So on Saturday is the start of the next one.
And we'll send out the link when we send this recording tomorrow as well. Tomorrow, we have time to do that, right? Yeah, tomorrow's the 31st. Yep. Okay, Susan wants to talk to you. Go.
I'm a pelvic floor hot mess. Over the past 40 years, I've had 8 pelvic surgeries for endometriosis, ovarian cysts, and adhesions, and have had a hysterectomy 25 years ago, and a bilateral salpingo oophorectomy, VSO. Those are a mouthful. I've also had 3 vaginal deliveries of big babies with episiotomies and high forceps with 4th degree tear. I've stress incontinence, grade 3 cystocele, vaginal prolapse, grade 1 rectocele, lots of chronic constipation and gut issues all of my life, and total thyroidectomy for thyroid cancer 10 years ago. Start to see pelvic floor PT next week. Awesome. Urogyne is recommending prolapse surgery, and though I want relief, I'm afraid of another surgery at 70. Is there any hope for me? 1000% yes. You have been through a lot. Pelvic floor PT, 1000%. That's a part that I really, really wish that anybody who is recommended to a urogyne is recommended to a pelvic floor physical therapist, either first or in conjunction with seeing the urogyne. And that if somebody is being offered surgery for anything, even close to the pelvis, that they are working in collaboration with the pelvic floor. That just to me is good medicine. And I really hope that continues to happen. So yes, you're seeing that person. Chronic constipation. So chronic constipation can be a contributor to the development of prolapse and pelvic floor challenges. It can also be the result of pelvic floor surgeries, pelvic floor dysfunction. So again, the physiotherapist can help you identify maybe if you've got some chronic tension in the muscles, which you probably do given the history that you've had. And is that contributing to the constipation, or was constipation one of the contributors to some of the challenges that you've had? Working with a gastroenterologist, a gut health person, there's a woman, she's actually in Vancouver. Her name's Rosalind Kent. She is a holistic nutritionist who focuses on gut and constipation. Her handle or her website is Plants First Nutrition. I really, really like her information. I also really like the book called Fiber Fueled from Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. He's a gastroenterologist. Thyroid is going to play a role in constipation. So I'm not sure what I'm assuming you're on some sort of thyroid support medication as well. Your urogyne recommending surgery, I wouldn't go there first. So seeing your pelvic floor PT is number one, which you're doing already. And getting into a pelvic floor exercise routine with a whole body approach, and also hypopressives. Hypopressives are, again, it's a type of exercise technique, and they are really, really helpful specifically with prolapse. They can help with incontinence, they can help with back pain, they can help with our posture, they help with our breath, our nervous system. So many benefits to that technique, but a big one is prolapse. So I would be going down that path first, looking into diet, lifestyle, pelvic floor exercise, hypopressives, while you see your PT. And potentially surgery is an option down the road. Let's leave it there as, we have this option, but there's a lot of other things to pursue first.
I just want to say to Susan and everybody else, thank you for coming and showing up tonight. That is a lot. I understand your first comment when you say, you refer to your pelvic floor as a hot mess, but not giving up, taking time out of your day to come and chat with us today, those are all part of the process and really great steps towards you feeling amazing. So don't accept it, suck it up, think it's just something that you have to live with for the next 3 decades, because you don't.
Yeah. And it's never too late.
It's never too late. Joanne asked, does it take a lot of pelvic floor pressure to destabilize the prolapse repairs? I'm scared I'm going to break something. Intercourse hasn't been the easiest so far. Super snug.
Yeah.
So far, things super snug.
Yeah. So we have something called intra-abdominal pressure. We all have intra-abdominal pressure. It's part of the way that our core works. So we all know about core exercise, core stability, core workouts. And part of that is intra-abdominal pressure. And an increase in intra-abdominal pressure is technically increasing our capacity to manage whatever activity is that we're going to do. And it's also thought of as, oh, well, if I increase pressure, that means it's pressure down on my pelvic floor. That means it's going to contribute to prolapse. And pressure is not for a long time, it was don't do crunches because they increase intra-abdominal pressure. Don't do planks. Don't do then everything. Me standing up from my chair increases intra-abdominal pressure. It happens. We can't stop it. It's how we manage it. Many people are told, especially after surgery, that they can't do things like squats or heavy lifting or running because those are things that are thought of as creating more pressure. And while that, I do agree with that, at least temporarily early on, I don't believe that it's helpful advice to say you have to avoid anything with pressure going forward. Sitting down and standing up from the toilet increases intra-abdominal pressure, and we need to be able to do that for the rest of our lives. So avoiding that movement isn't helpful. What is helpful is how can we progressively load our pelvic floor to build capacity and resilience, and use our body and our awareness of what things feel like as guides. So reconnecting with the pelvic floor through visualization, through breath work, through Kegel exercises, coordinating that then into movement, progressing on to adding a bit of resistance to that, and kind of walking that path. A foundational principle in fitness is progressive overload. If I pretend that this is a weight, and if I stood here and I lifted this weight, this is not very heavy. This is probably like 0.2 pounds, right? So if I did 3 sets of 10, because that's what somebody's workout told me to do. Okay, I've just done 10 and now I stop. I could do probably 500 of these because this is so light. I would get tired from the motion, but I'm not I'm not imparting a load that my muscles now need to get stronger for, because it already has the capacity to manage this. If I want to get stronger, I need to then get something heavier and do that, and then make it a little bit heavier, do that again. And so adding something that causes the muscles to need to become stronger. Avoiding movement, avoiding all things that create pressure, avoiding all this does not build resilience and capacity. The challenge is there will never be anything that says you can't lift over 25 pounds if you've had a prolapse surgery, because 25 pounds is incredibly heavy for somebody and not heavy at all to another person. It's about the strategy. It's about the person's capacity, their training. There's so many variables there. So I appreciate the fear, because once we've experienced this, we don't want to experience it again. We don't want to break it or unravel it. So rebuilding capacity, starting with the Buff Muff challenge, then progressively loading, adding in hypopressives, all of those will build your capacity and resilience and your ability to manage pressures. And painful sex, very common after pelvic floor surgeries, pelvic floor physio, lots of lube, moisturize your vagina, estrogen. I can't remember if you're on estrogen. I think you said you were. And then potentially using something like the V-Sculpt or dilators if you need to. I had painful sex for about 3.5 months post-op myself after my rectocele repair.
Very interesting. Just a little sidebar. Janet drinks 2.8 liters of water a day. Not 2.6, not 3, but 2.8. I just love that. You just like tickled me.
Very I drink, so this is just over a liter, like it's like 1.1 liters or something like that. And I drink 3 of these. So mine's probably like 3.1 or 2.
Amazing.
Really specific, but that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome, Janet. Awesome, Kim. I'll let you get a drink of water because Judy has a question for you as well. I had a sling bladder surgery maybe 15 years ago. I'm still pretty good, but find now that when my bladder is full, it seems to spill over and I have no control. I don't empty my bladder in my pants, just a little spill that I cannot control. Only when my bladder is full. I do not leak any other time. Will a pelvic floor physio be a good idea?
Yep.
I am almost 70 and I am on bioidentical estrogen and progesterone at higher doses than most doctors give to their patients. I feel amazing, except that I have SI issues. Will this help with sciatica too?
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. So see your pelvic floor physical therapist. I recommend vaginal moisturizer. If you're not on local vaginal estrogen, I would recommend that as well. And SI issues. So SI is sacroiliac. So this triangular bone, so this is the end of this is like our low back here. This triangular bone is called our sacrum. These are our ilium. And so these joints, one here, are your SI joints, sacroiliac joints. And they're very, very common in low back pain. 95.3% of women with low back pain have some form of pelvic floor dysfunction. So anybody who has ever had any back pain, guess what I'm going to say? Go to a pelvic floor physical therapist and do your pelvic floor exercise and your back pain will resolve. So I see a pelvic floor physio and also start doing whole body pelvic floor exercise. It could be scar tissue in there. It could be that maybe some, like sometimes if we're not receiving a signal early enough and there's, as you say, there's a bit of a spill over, that is common in people who don't, their sensation is hindered in some way, and maybe they don't have the mobility to get to the bathroom in time, which doesn't sound like that's your case, but it's maybe something to do with the messaging. So it could be scar tissue from the previous surgery that you had, or maybe other pelvic floor, like childbirths, if you've had any, or something to do with that, or also the overactivity in the muscles. That is also very commonly associated with SI joint pain as well, is overactivity in the pelvic floor.
Very cool. Oh my goodness. I just realized that we're at 5 o'clock on the West Coast already. And I think we have I don't know if we have 5 questions, but I see 5 new messages there. Do you have a few more minutes?
I do, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for doing that. If you can stay, because I know this has been a great discussion today, please do. If you have to leave, know that you'll get a copy of this recording in your inbox in 24 hours. And don't forget to go to moisturizeyourvagina.com and use the code MCHICKS15 to use your $15 gift card. And we'll keep on going. Eve is asking, what is gynovisceral manipulation and is it helpful?
So gyno meaning pelvis, visceral is organs. And so I actually very rarely ever hear that term used, to be honest, but anybody who is licensed to evaluate and treat beyond the entrance to the vagina. So that could be a gynecologist, it could be your doctor, it could be a pelvic floor physical therapist. They are inserting most often fingers. Sometimes they may use a wand, or sometimes they may use an e-stim device inserted into the vagina that there may be an element of sort of manipulation, I guess you can say, addressing the tissue in some capacity. So yes, if that is what that person needs, then yes, it can be a helpful technique. So that could be the scar tissue manipulation. It could be releasing tension in muscles. It could be feeling for the way that the muscles are contracting and relaxing. So that's sort of an overview of what that would mean. I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and put in Vagina Coach, you'll find my channel that illustrate what happens in a pelvic floor physical therapy assessment and gives you a visual. So you, not like a real vagina, but with my vulva puppet, and also one that we had another kind of anatomical model that looks like this.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Sandy says, my pelvic floor physio told me the majority of her referrals are men post-op, much more than women post-op. You're nodding.
Yeah. And I wish that there were more referrals for the women, but yeah, men, very, very common with prostate issues, just a prostate enlargement in and of itself, but especially people who are going through radiation potentially or a prostatectomy, 1000% should be seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist as well.
Yes. So go tell all the men that you love as well.
Yes.
Gwen says, I'm inspired to become a pelvic floor physio. I love
That's
it.
awesome. Please do.
Love it. Love it.
There was a person, Kathy, here, and she had sent me a message earlier. So I'm just reading through that right now.
Okay. That's great, Janet, that you love your V-Sculpt. We'll tell the folks at V-Sculpt that. And you can, whether you're in Canada or the United States, you can find the links to that V-Sculpt or V-Fit at joylux.com. Yes, so to estrogen matters. Oh, sorry, Kim.
No, so keep going. It's all good.
Yes, Estrogen Matters was amazing. Made me find a good doctor that is treating me with the hormones that I need, and that most doctors will give their patients. And I feel 20 years younger. Good testimony.
Awesome.
Okay, go ahead.
So Kathy had asked about progestin and progesterone. So I think Shirley has an amazing hormone masterclass that I would recommend that you go to very quickly. Progestin is the synthetic version of progesterone.
It's
so
the non-bio, it's actually the non-bioidentical version
Yes.
of progesterone.
Thank you. So it's trying to be the same thing, but it's not the same thing. And the follow-up question on there is, does progesterone help better with sleep? So progesterone can be something that can be helpful for sleep and calming anxiety. It's kind of like our feel good, calm down, Zen hormone. And so many people do notice some of those benefits when they are on progesterone. Now, Shirley and I are watching the more updated research and are more in favor of body identical or bioidentical progesterone. So micronized progesterone, as opposed to the synthetic progestins.
Okay, so I'm gonna insert a little clarification there.
Okay.
All hormone therapies are synthetic because
Yes.
synthetic means made in a lab.
Yes.
So some hormones are made in a compounding lab. The majority of hormone therapies are made by reputable, large pharmaceutical manufacturers. This is an example of bioidentical oral micronized progesterone. This is what I take. The brand name happens to be Prometrium, but there are a couple of others. But before we go there, and thanks for mentioning the masterclass, I love to teach women like the roles and responsibilities of estrogen and progesterone when our cycles are regular. Because very quickly these conversations can like go into therapies, and we don't always know, like what you just said, that progesterone is the hormone that's produced in the second half of our cycle when cycles are regular, and it has hundreds of jobs, like protecting the brain and protecting the bones. But the more common jobs that progesterone does for us is it's very calming, it's very supportive of our mood and sleep, it helps to regulate bleeding, and it protects the lining of the uterus.
Yep. Awesome.
And any doctor can prescribe progesterone. You don't need anyone special, and you can get it at any pharmacy.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered your question, Kathy.
Yep. Thank you.
Big thank you from Joanne to you, Kim. Thanks for everything that you're doing, putting in the work and the consistency. And she's going to join your challenge, which is amazing.
Yay.
You
Awesome.
are welcome. Yes, Janet, thanks for mentioning the shopping channel. You can get the V-Sculpt there. Thank you so much. I have to hop off, but I'll see you at the Buff Muff. This is so good. Everyone's so positive.
Can I jump in with one answer? One thing. As Chantel has said, she's going to Eurospot for a consultation in May to talk about the Kegel throne. So the Kegel throne, or the Kegel chair as it's called, is literally like a kind of a rounded chair that you sit on fully clothed. And these have been popping up all over the place. And it's kind of like an electrical stimulation externally, and they are touted to do between 11 and 13,000-ish Kegels for you during a 20-minute session where, again, you sit fully closed. And there's some evidence that it can be helpful for some people. They are expensive. It is not a lifelong fix. You would need to go repeatedly, potentially multiple sessions initially, and then ongoing. And I do wholeheartedly believe that if you have the capacity to activate and relax your muscles on your own, so if you do not have nerve damage or spinal cord injuries, if you are mobile and you can activate your pelvic floor muscles, you should be doing it, not outsourcing it. Certain populations, so again, maybe if there's some neurological damage, if somebody has mobility issues, if somebody has nerve damage that they can't feel, they can't activate, There are populations, I do feel like this is an amazing technology. If you have the money and unlimited resources and you would rather, then I think, sure, there's no harm per se, but I think we should be doing the work, and it's a lot cheaper for us to do the work.
I am so sorry, Chantel. I must have just like slid by your comment. So thanks, Kim.
Yep.
And someone has just asked for the link to the vaginal moisturizer. So carry on, Kim.
I'm just putting in, somebody was asking about the V-Sculpt, and that's at joylux.com.
Joylux.com.
I'm just scrolling back up here as well.
Sorry, everybody. We're just like catching up. Great conversation today and excellent questions.
Somebody said their nurse practitioner discouraged Eurospot. So again, I don't want to say flat out no. Go for it and you can have your session, but I would definitely I would do the work if you can.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're good.
We're good.
I think we got them all.
Good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you, Kim, for doing this from California.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for hosting it again.
Don't forget, everybody, to go to vaginacoach.com / is it still Buff Muff?
I'll put it into the chat here.
Yeah.
Right
So
now.
vaginacoach.com. I think you put BMC, right?
BMC. And
do that to sign up for Kim's Buff Muff challenge. Don't forget to go to moisturizeyourvagina.com and use your gift card. We love doing this. We love that you have put your own name at the top of the to-do list and showed up to spend this hour with us. And so cheers, everybody.
Cheersies.
Have a good night. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Bye.
Safe travels home.
Thanks so much. Bye.